Oklahoma football fans will witness another Heisman encore, but will that mean another BCS title game for the Sooners? And is college football ready for that? From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Mike Sherman, and this is the Press Row. My guests today are Barry Trammell, columnist, and columnist John Rohde. Guys, in your mind, what was the biggest factor that brought Sam Bradford back to Norman?
Sounds to me like he just likes it here. Likes the college life, likes playing for the Sooners, likes going to school at the business college. The one thing NFL money can't buy is your last year of college. You can't go back and relive it. You can't go back and replay it. And I think Sam figured, you know what? I think I'll enjoy this while I can.
I think he's a poster child for stay in school, and everybody else is following. I think he's listening to the right people. I don't think he's on the internet too much, seeing where he could go. I think he's listening to the people who know and starting with his head coach. No guarantees, nothing wrong with happiness, that kind of thing.
Guys, I'm with you. My question is, how much, if any, factor did the reports that his draft stock might not have been as high as we heard maybe a couple weeks ago? Over the weekend, Todd McShay said he's been talking to some scouts who said maybe they weren't as high on him as they thought previously. Mel Kiper had Matthew Stafford ahead of him. What factor does that play?
I'm sure it had a factor. I'm sure he heard from the right NFL people. But I think, if Sam wasn't the number one quarterback, some people talking maybe even Sanchez might go ahead of him if they were in the same draft. But I don't think he was going to drop to 25th or something. I think he would have still been an upper half of the first round. So I'm sure it had a factor to some degree, but maybe not major.
How about the question of high or low? Aren't you better off if you're a quarterback coming from a winning program in college, going to a winning program in pro football? The teams that draft high in this league are teams that don't have a very good coach or changing coaches, or teams that somehow traded up. You look at Baltimore, they drafted middle of the first round. They got Joe Flacco. Now they're in the AFC Championship game. Did Sam Bradford hurt his chances of perhaps going to a winning team in the NFL by delaying entering the league a year later?
Well, I think everybody concerned hopes not, but here's the thing. He was set up to go to Detroit, and we all know what's happened to former Heisman winners from the state going to Detroit. Now, Barry Sanders is in the Hall of Fame, but Sims got hurt, and Owens got hurt, and some other people. So maybe that was a depressing thought to him. Maybe he goes, what if I am the number one guy? What if I am the number one quarterback? Do I want to go to that situation? Again, the happiness thing.
Guys, as you look at the Sooners and what they return, how do you assess the roster coming back?
Loaded. That's how I assess it. They went from, maybe picked even third in the Big 12 South to maybe picked third in the nation. It transforms the season, these four guys coming back. Bradford, obviously, but McCoy, gives Sooners a chance to have a saber-tooth defense, just a big-time defense with McCoy coming back. And then on offense, you got your best blocker, the one guy you can count on that how he'll play, Trent Williams. And then Gresham was just, manna from heaven. He's going to come back. Great safety valve for Bradford. I think they'll throw even more to him this year. To me, it sets up the Sooners for a great year in 2009.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, what about this Sooner fatigue out there? Are they becoming the Buffalo Bills of college football?
Well, I think there's a world of difference between pro game and the college game. There are a lot more variables in the college game. In the pro game, you get your foundations and you pay money and you keep them there and you figure it out. College is a lot more mercurial. It's just there's too many highs and lows, a lot more highs and lows. Now, that being said, we have the same 10 suspects for the national title next year, including Oklahoma. So, by the way, is Marv Levy in the Hall of Fame?
I think so.
Well, if he's not there, people think he should be. I think that people are thinking the same as Stoops.
Well, the Sooners won one.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks about how bad it is. If the Sooners hadn't won that 2000 game, then you could, talk about despair. But, same with Ohio State. They've got a little bit of this problem. But they beat Miami in an epic Fiesta Bowl. So, no, they're not the Buffalo Bills. They do have a bowl problem that they need to fix.
How do you fix that?
Well, you win. That's how you fix it. You win. And you just got to keep going back. And the key is don't go to the Sun Bowl or don't go to the Independence Bowl and win because nobody cares. You got to get back to the BCS and win. And then all of a sudden, the talk stops.
Would you rather be 1-3 or 0-0? Would
1-3.
1-3.
1-3.
Yeah, no question about it.
About next football season, you have all three of the top quarterbacks, the finalists who were at the Heisman, coming back. Is this shaping up as some sort of spectacular season? Because Colt McCoy and Sam Bradford will meet again in October at the Cotton Bowl. You'll have Tim Tebow out there. A lot of people think that is the most complete team. They'll be ranked number 1. Is this just sort of a replay of the season we just saw, which was pretty dang good, by the way?
Could be. I mean, I think, what I said was we could even have the same kind of triangle going on in the Big 12 South with Oklahoma State replacing Tech. Cowboys should be better. I think Tech's going to drop off, losing Crabtree and Graham Harrell. But, the Cowboys get Texas. If Texas beats OU in Dallas, I could see a scenario where OSU knocks off Texas in Stillwater and OU beats OSU in Bedlam. You got another 3-way tie. So I think we will see very similar, and Florida will be loaded. I don't think they'll lose to Ole Miss next year. They might lose to somebody else, but I don't think they'll lose to Mississippi. So I think we'll see many of the same players. John said it, same faces every year seem like in college football, and next year may even be more narrowed than usual.
I don't know what Mark Sanchez from USC is doing as we speak. He's going to hold a news conference, but I think he's going. But if he comes back, you got the exact same characters just about.
Guys, is there any chance, and this is the last question on Bradford, is there any chance that Sam Bradford went to Bob Stoops and maybe asked some of the same things that Blake Griffin asked of Jeff Capel? Let me try to expand my game. Let me do some things that maybe the pro scouts didn't see me do a whole lot. There's been some talk among the pro scouts that Bradford wasn't under center enough, too much shotgun. Any chance that this was part of the equation when Sam said, I want to come back? Can we run more pro-style stuff?
Doesn't sound like Sam Bradford.
Doesn't sound like him to me either.
So I doubt that's the case. I thought OU ran quite a bit of under center stuff earlier in the year. Towards the end of the year, particularly when he hurt the hand, they went to shotgun almost exclusively. But I don't think that's something Sam Bradford did or would do.
It seems odd that a kid would have that kind of year and he's going to go out and try to prove himself. He's already proved himself. I mean,
tying this back into the entry, Jason White had a Heisman encore at OU. His second year, he finished 3rd in the Heisman. That by no means was a disappointing year, was it? It just wasn't as good as his Heisman Trophy winning season.
And he had a great year, and if they'd have won the Orange Bowl, it would have been one of the all-time great stories. But he just didn't. He just didn't come back and win the Orange Bowl. Yeah, but his season was fantastic. You finished 3rd in the Heisman. Ty Detmer did the same thing. Won the Heisman, came back, finished 3rd in '91 in the Heisman. You get back to, Tim Tebow won the Heisman, came back, finished 3rd in the Heisman. I don't think anybody's sitting around saying, hey, did Tim Tebow have an off year? No, he had a great year, and then when he wins the Big Bowl, it became an epic year. So, no, I don't think I don't anticipate Bradford having any kind of big come down next season.
Okay, guys, speaking of a team that's having a little bit of a rebirth, the Thunder still has the worst record in the NBA percentage-wise. But with 7 wins, OKC pulls even with the Washington Wizards in the battle for the worst. Bill Parcells said, you are who your record says you are. The Thunder 7-33, is that the case with them, John?
Yes, but here's the deal. There's some sympathy votes out there. I think the last check, they're 1-12 in games decided by 6 points or less. If you make that a 50-50 proposition, that puts them at 12 or 13 wins, and suddenly they got the 6th worst record. But you know what? They didn't win those games. They didn't do the things they needed to win those games. Now they're learning how to do it. Last 10 games, last 15 games, gosh, they're a 500 team, maybe a little bit better. But yeah, 7-33, that's exactly what they are because that's what they've done on the court.
Scott Brooks said in the postgame yesterday, our record does not indicate who we are.
You are what your record says you are. But what their record says they are is 6-21 under Scott Brooks, which stinks, but isn't historical, like 7-33 or 2-29, whatever they were. So you can look at the record different ways. And what are they since Christus got to town? Are they 3-4 or 4-4, whatever they are?
4-4 in their last 8.
4-4 in their last 8. So you know what? they're sort of in a decent little team when in their current form. I don't mean they're a playoff contender, but they're something you can stand to live with, which they weren't in the month of November. So you can look at the record different ways.
Are you guys ready to say that Nenad Kristic made the biggest difference, and that's really what's transformed this team?
No, I think just being in those situations, game after game, you learn from that. You can't help but learn from that, especially when you're young and impressionable and have good legs, which the Thunder does. They're not going to get tired. They're not an old team. I think they're the third youngest team in the league. So Kristic is part of the deal, but I think it's just knowing each other a little bit better.
Well, getting rid of PJ, I love PJ Carlesimo, but obviously he was an anchor around this roster. They're a different team with him, and they've become a different team with Kristic also. So, they've got a real center. They played, good part of this season without a center, and then they tried Robert Swift, and everybody had to turn their eyes because you can't stand to look at him. And they got a real center, which means Nick Collison's playing real power forward and not guarding Shaq and people like that. So, they made two impressive steps to transform this team. You keep making steps like that, and the improvement will accelerate.
The improvement of Kevin Durant has been remarkable since Scott Brooks came aboard. Is he an all-star?
I go with what he said. No, I like that answer. That makes just another reason to like the kid. He knows there are gaps in his game, especially defensively. Whatever it means, letting the game come to you, that's evident. I mean, he defers when he needs to defer, and he's won a game, and he's lost a game, and he almost won a game, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Durant, but I'm with him. He's a ways to go before an all-star.
I haven't studied the Western Conference all-star candidates, so I can't say whether he belongs on the all-star team or not. But in my opinion, the way he's played the last 2 months, I think he's playing at an all-star caliber. I mean, he's putting the team on his back. Doesn't always hit the big shot at the end, often misses it. But he's put this team on his back, and he's playing like a star. I don't know about an all-star, but he's playing like a star should. And that's what happens to stars is they end up in the all-star game. So if he doesn't make it this year, he'll be there probably next year and for many years to come.
When you sit down with pen and paper, though, you realize how few spots there are after the starters. I mean, what do they have, 7 spots after that?
Well, yeah, you got the 5 starters, and 2 of those go to Chinese guys because of the internet. So then,
That's right.
then you got 7 spots, and maybe 1 or 2 extra because of injuries. But yeah, it's a hard game to make.
You start looking at it. Is it Tony Parker or is it Kevin Durant? And Carmelo Anthony's probably going to be a starter. But you start going through it and you're looking at is Darren Williams going to make it or is it Kevin Durant?
Or Chauncey Billups, or Kevin Durant.
Those are hard calls to make. But
I don't know. To me, that, as much as I love Durant, pretty easy to make when you look at the way somebody like Chauncey Billups has transformed a team in Denver. So, yeah, it's a difficult roster to make.
Okay, last question on the Thunder. Are these guys in danger of playing their way out of ping pong balls, of playing their way out of the number 1 or the prime position for the number 1 pick?
They are, but at the same time, don't they have 3 first-round picks? I think if they don't get in the top 3 or get the number 1 pick, they may swap a couple of those other first-rounders. And they got money room, they got cap room, so they're in good position. I mean, I can't imagine these guys tanking on purpose. Heck, at the beginning of the year, they just naturally tanked. I guess that's a good problem to have.
They built a huge hole to dig out of, and slowly but surely they are digging it out.
Well, Washington's a huge problem because the Wizards obviously aren't doing anything.
Talk about tanking.
That's a team with some players, and when you talk about Jameson and Cron Butler, I know goofball Arenas is hurt, but for crying out loud, they got ball players and they've had playoff experience the last 2 years. I mean, that's somebody that has no business being 7-31. So that's a problem. Washington's a problem.
Is it a good problem, though, for the Thunder? Because Blake Griffin and the way this team's constituted right now, it seems like they've got a power forward. They've got a front line. And Durant is supposedly a better playing at the 3 or small forward than he is at 2 or the shooting guard. Would there be some pause if Blake Griffin came to him at number 1 anyway?
No, I think getting Blake Griffin is plan A. Because you've got a center in Kristic. While Collison's playing okay, Blake Griffin at power forward upgrades you there. Then you got Durant at a small forward, Westbrook at point. You got cap room. Go sign a shooter, and Jeff Green becomes the second best sixth man in the league. A guy that can play 2 or 3 different positions and play them well and defend all kinds of people. To me, the roster really sets up nicely if you can get Blake Griffin.
And you, John, think those draft picks are the fail-safe if they play their way out of
Well, I
ball
think so.
range?
I'm sure Presti's got about 27 different game plans. So I like the position they're in going into the draft right now, yes.
Okay, speaking of a team that's in great position, Blake Griffin's coach got a little fired up on Monday after the Sooners ended a 6-game losing streak to Texas. Jeff Capel's words, "We're a good basketball team, man." What was his message?
I don't think he meant we're a good basketball team. I think he meant we're playing basketball. Anybody remember? I mean, he's just obliterated by the shadow of football. And Big 12 started the week of the BCS title game, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, Sammy B said it best yesterday when I asked him. I said, "What do you like best about going to college and playing college football?" And he said, "Everything. It's a football state." That's the first thing he said. It's a football state. So you know, the Jeff Capel would be wise to heed the words of his quarterback and realize, you know what, you can't swim upstream and try to get people to get all fired up about basketball in a football state.
You don't tug on Superman's cape. You just kind of go along for the ride. And you know, Billy fought it early, then he realized it. Billy Tubbs did, and Kelvin Sampson fought it early, and he realized it. Capel
Did he? I don't know. Did Kelvin ever really realize it? I don't know if he ever accepted it.
All right, yeah, he fought it the whole dang time, man. And Capel should know. I mean, it's no different than going to North Carolina and being at a basketball school. So, you know, Barry's exactly right. He's just kind of raising his hand, saying, you know, we're here too. But the lack of respect is ridiculous. You got a kid, Blake Griffin, who's getting great ink. You're 16-1 for crying out loud. The coaches voted you ahead of North Carolina. Yeah. Which is
number 6 in the country.
It doesn't add up. I understood the message, but it was just delivered a little bit differently.
Does he have a point, though, about the guards? I mean, they pulled through. Johnson pulled through great against Texas.
Well, is anybody ripping their guards? Who's ripping their guards?
Oh, I think it's been said and written that, you know, as you analyze a team, as you analyze any team, you look at the strengths and weaknesses, and the strengths are so obvious.
I mean, Austin Johnson's, he's had his moments, but he's not an elite player. And you know, when they get to the Sweet 16 or beyond, they're going to be, overmatched at guard to some degree. So they got to make up for it with their prowess inside. I mean, that's just the way it is. So if he wants us to believe that his guards are, you know, Russell Westbrook and whoever, then I'm sorry, that's not the case. I mean, he's got some pretty serviceable guards, and that's what he's got.
Is this disrespect thing going to linger like it did with Kelvin? And you know, Kelvin, by the time Kelvin left, everybody was ready for him to leave too. But I don't think that's the case with Capel, and there are some programs out there where basketball is king that might like Jeff Capel at the end of this year. Is there a chance that this sticks in his craw enough to where he wants to go somewhere else?
Well, I think he wants to go somewhere else anyway. I think if Arizona opened up, he would go there. There's talk about that. Let me rephrase. Arizona is open, and there's, I guess, whoever Oklahoma has as his coach at the time, Jim Livengood wants them. Maryland could open up with Gary Williams and so forth. And hey, if a good ACC job opens up, Capel's long gone. Long gone.
I like Maryland. I like the idea for Maryland as a Fear the Turtle guy. Okay, finally, guys, your picks for the Super Bowl. This is not the playoffs that the NFL anticipated. The top-seeded Giants, they're gone. The number 2 seeded Carolina Panthers, they're gone. The top-seeded Tennessee Titans, gone. What we have left is the wild card playoffs extended. And it's a trend in the NFL. Do you see another wild card going all the way? Barry, who are you picking?
I'm going to pick the Ravens. You could see in December that they were really starting to build some foam at the mouth momentum like they had in 2000, to where you just couldn't do anything with their defense. You couldn't make a yard. You couldn't complete a pass. You couldn't get anything done. They're not making mistakes on offense. Flacco's completed only 44% in the playoffs, and nobody cares because to them the best play in football is a punt. You know, I'm surprised they don't start punting on 3rd down. So I like the Ravens. The Steelers have got them twice this year, both by the hair of their chinny chin chin. I like the Ravens to make up for it, and I like the Ravens to go on and beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Who are you picking, John?
I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of Pennsylvania plates at Tampa. I think it's going to be all Pennsylvania down there.
The Keystone, and the winner will be?
Steelers.
Okay. Thanks, guys. That's all for the Press Row. You can follow all the conversation every day in newsok.com and every morning in the Oklahoma.